Yo, what's cracking, guys? James here, formerly known as Black Scorpion Fitness. Grim, when I saw your comment that you remembered Black Scorpion Fitness, that put a smile on my face. So that was great. It's been a while since I've gone under that name, but that was kind of the original channel name some time ago. But nonetheless, here we are. I'm going to start this up again and kind of try to get back into uh, the feel and the swing of things. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully, it just gets better as it goes. Uh, what an interesting start to the day. As soon as I sat down, my chair literally exploded. Literally looked like it just puked all over the floor. The back just kind of went back, and this guy. I mean, geez, this thing's pretty hefty, pretty stout. I mean, I'd say it probably weighs maybe half, a little less of a pound. But I don't know if this chair was trying to tell me something or what. I mean, if anything, I've lost weight over the past few months even, and I'm starting to try to put a little bit more back on. So I mean, I find that kind of insulting, but that's okay. That's all right. Work in progress. So yeah, where have I been? What have I been up to? Yeah, it's been a rough few years. I think I mentioned it in past videos that I deal with a lot of depression and anxiety. And as a kid, I was diagnosed with low-lean depression. So that's kind of a silent battle that I've been fighting for the most part of my life, and it has definitely impacted daily life and activities and things I like to do, things that interest me. But I guess the thing that gets me the most is ADHD. Nigel, I know you mentioned potentially having ADHD. Believe me, I know that well. Which is why I'm probably going to be all over the place. I'm not really sure where to start, so I'm just going to kind of wing it and go from there. So yeah, I don't know if you guys knew. So for the last oh gosh, 20, 25 years or so, I've been working in tech. Everything from IT and information security to cybersecurity. Um, a lot of people would consider, a 25-year run good, or that's a hell of a run. Honestly, wasn't happy at all. Yeah, I look back to when I was a kid. I was pretty much in trouble on the regular. I hung out with a pretty rough crowd, and did a lot of stupid shit. I mean, didn't we all? Um, I I always say, I've probably been arrested more times and ridden in more cop cars than most people. At that age, at a young age, between the age of, you know, 13 to 18, probably more so than people, twice that age at the time, and even older yet. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not proud of it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are some things that I don't regret. There are some things that I did, when I was younger that I absolutely do not regret. I feel like I kind of did it out of necessity. Um, but that's just one of those things. Maybe I'll talk about it in another video. But as a kid, I did a lot of stupid shit, and then I kind of got into technology. I was always, I guess, good with my hands. I got into woodworking. I used to love woodworking. I used to love tinkering with technology, electronics, and things like that. I used to love taking things apart. Um, Most notably, when I was a little kid, I thought, hey, I'm going to build a go kart. So I took my dad's lawnmower apart, and I realized that it wasn't going to work because it was a vertical shaft, not a horizontal shaft, like you need for a go kart, or at least So I thought at the time made the most sense. So I got the thing completely disassembled. I got the blade off. I got the mower out. I mean, a few screws, no big deal, right? and then realized, well, this ain't gonna work. So I took the motor and I just basically sat it back into the frame of the mower, and I just left it there and forgot about it. And then, of course, a couple days later, Dad comes home from work and he goes to mow the lawn and he goes to pull the string, and the engine just kind of bloop, just falls right off of the frame. And guess whose name he screamed first? Yeah. So yeah, that went over well. Good stuff. That's one of those things I don't regret, just because it's just, I don't know, it's just funny to me. But I know that he would agree. So um, you know, I've struggled with a lot of different things in life. I think probably ADHD is probably uh, the number one, and it's kind of one of those things that I've always been better at communicating, via uh, writing, or in text. I mean, I can sit here and write an email. I can crank out probably 20, 30 pages in a matter of minutes, no problem. I can express myself and articulate myself in ways that I feel like I can't do verbally. I always feel like I've kind of had issues communicating verbally, and that's definitely something that I'm really trying to work on now. I feel like once I kind of get started, things tend to flow a little bit easier. But I apologize if some things may get lost in translation, because with the way that my you know brain works, and how fast things process, literally a million miles a minute, I can't keep up. So everything is moving extremely fast up here, but I can't get it out of here uh, fast enough. So sometimes things kind of come out just as gobbledygook, so to speak. But So going back to the whole career thing, as a kid, I did a lot of different things. I've even into early adulthood, I've done construction. Um, I've done yard work. I've done cleanup work. I've done a lot of different things. I even tried insurance for a little while. Yeah, no, not for me. The technology thing kind of well, before I get to that, I guess I want to say that I've always been interested in business. I've always been interested in business. Always wanted to start my own business, and I actually started even as a kid, back in the early '90s. I'm 45 years old now, but back in the early '90s, I started. I had my very first computer. It was a name brand computer, and I took that thing apart and rebuilt it probably more times than I can count. And yes, it still worked. So I had a knack for that. I feel like I had a knack for taking things apart, rebuilding them, and then eventually I kind of grew into reverse engineering. I love seeing how things work, and how they tick, and then either build them back. I guess better, for lack of a better definition, or to build them back in such a way that it modifies or extends their capability over what they originally had, which technically could also be classified as hacking. That's always fun. But when I was a kid, I mean, I was all over the place. I mean, I had so much energy, I didn't know what to do with it. I mean, there'd be times where I'd be up. I wouldn't go to bed for 2, 3 days. I wouldn't even take my clothes off, or I would change my clothes, but I would still be clothed. Wouldn't even take my clothes off to go to bed. I mean, I'd take them off to shower and things like that. But I always had so much energy. I just didn't know what to do with it. I was constantly running around. I was constantly eating. I mean, my parents would spend a good amount of money, probably most of their paychecks back then, on food at the grocery store, just to bring that home, and within a couple days time, I've already got half of all that cleaned out, because I had such a high metabolism that I couldn't gain weight. And the doctor's like, well, let's put him on. I think at the time I was 14 years old, and they put me on the old. I'm sure you guys remember Metrics, the meal replacements. So they put me on those, thinking that would help me gain weight. Because they were more protein concentrate. More calorically dense. So I think at the time those were, oh gosh, I don't even remember. I want to say 800 to 1,000 calories, and they said make it with with whole milk or with raw milk. Um, you could add some heavy whipping cream, just, yeah, not the healthiest, but, they were trying to get weight on me. I was just so energetic as a kid, it was ridiculous. And even today, I feel like I can eat quite a bit, but not nearly as much as when I was a kid. It was pretty ridiculous. I could destroy a buffet, no problem. But lots of energy, lots of different interests. And I guess that's kind of where the ADHD comes in. I tried a lot of different things. I tried a lot of different things. Um, where do I want to go with this? That's appropriate for YouTube. Um, I guess that falls into the spectrum of I did a lot of stupid things. It's and yeah, some things helped, some things didn't. But I guess where I'm going with this is trying to figure out, my purpose in life. What was I meant to do? I just always felt like I was just kind of in free fall mode. There was times when I didn't even, most of the time, honestly, where I didn't even care whether I lived or died. I did, a lot of things that, in all honesty, I shouldn't even be here today. A lot of people, like even in school or even in a work environment, they see me as the quiet guy who kind of sits there and doesn't really talk or say much. But they don't realize that what's going on inside of my head. That my thought process and how fast things are moving and different things I'm contemplating and thinking about. And it was hard, man. It was tough, growing up. I was always involved in so many different things. I mean, just moved from one thing to another, and it was constant. But I dabbled and tried a lot of different things, work wise. I used to, as a kid, I used to steal a lot too. And the things that I would steal, I would do one of two things with. I would either give it to others. Like I would see, some kids that were, a lot less fortunate than me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't have it all as a kid, my parents did the best that they could, with me, like myself and my sister, we're adopted. So kudos to my parents because let's be honest, I can't really, I guess if somebody asked me to define um, the definition of true love, that's got to be true love because to allow a psychotic, hellacious demon like myself, at least, back then, I've calmed down, nowadays, but back then, to allow them to continue to reside in your household or just, not beat the living shit out of them or have them arrested or put in prison. That's another thing, but you know, to continue to fight for them and provide for them, to me, that's true love. I just can't think of a better definition of true love, especially from a parental figure, than that, because I know who I was and how I was as a kid, and for them to be able to endure and put up with that speaks volumes. I mean, you have to be a very strong person, and I would consider them some of the strongest people that I know, to have been able to, or even wanted to have put up with the shit that my sister and myself did and put them through. And I would say that's probably where a lot of the regrets lie, because as I'm older now, I'm just trying to make things better and trying to give back and do what I can for them. And I feel like no matter what I do or how long I do it, there's just no way that I could possibly repay them, for everything that they've done for me, or that they've done for my sister and I. I mean, it's tough. I mean, if I had the world, if I win the lottery, I mean, there it is. Like, I don't even care. Like, just, I'd hand it right over to them. Like, here you go. So, there's that. But yeah, so and the other thing I used to do with the items that I would steal, of course, I would sell. Like a lot of kids did. But I guess I would have to say that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey, so to speak. Um, I know that's not the most honest way to go about things. I understand that. I realize that. But more and more these days, I keep looking back to when I was a kid. Like, how was I able to sell things? How was I able to talk to so many people and interact with them, especially in such a manner that I could facilitate a business transaction? Whereas today, I feel like I'm kind of struggling to get something up and running. Maybe I'm jumping ahead too far, but so the technology being in that for about 25 years, I started out my first role. I was basically, repairing computers. I repaired my first computer um, at my parents' house. I was working with some friends to buy up parts and assemble PCs and things like that. No problem at all. I enjoyed it. It came easy to me. I fixed and installed, computer systems, stereo systems, just about anything that was, electronic. Um, that was something that I really enjoyed. So that's when a hobby became a profession. And when I got my first IT job, I was basically repairing computers. I was fixing things. Um, we had computers coming into the shop every single day. We turned them out as fast as they came in. I enjoyed it, and then from there, I kind of moved into more of the corporate world. Oh boy, I played it safe, for the next, I think my first job I was in for about 4 years. So the next about 21 years, I played it safe, and I say that because I went out in the field quite a bit. I was a field engineer, systems engineer. I sat behind a desk and just kind of let my health and my mental well-being or state of mind just kind of slowly rot away. And that's kind of something that now that I'm 45 years old and I look back on that, I realize, what the fuck did I do? That's not what I was supposed to do. I played it safe and thought, well, I can type fast on a keyboard. I'm very proficient when it comes to technology. Um, I can handle support calls. I can fix things. I can set up, routers and switches and firewalls. I can configure networks. I can, servers, desktops, laptops, mobile devices, all that crap. And I feel like at the time that was what I was supposed to be doing. The money was good, and you could say that maybe I was chasing the money too. But I felt like at the time that was what I was supposed to do. That was what what I was meant to do. That was my purpose, because technology and working with my hands and building things just came so easy to me. And I did a lot of other things on the side too. I still did woodworking and had other hobbies and things like that. But I thought, I need to stay in tech because that's where the money is. Now we can definitely laugh about that today because, yeah, the current economic climate is not that great. So, but anyway, I thought that that's where I was supposed to be and that's what my purpose was. And I realized more and more and more that that's actually not the case. But I stayed because the money was good, the benefits were good. And that's why I say I played it safe. The work was very challenging, and it was one of the only things that I could find that could challenge me or that could keep up with how fast my mind moves, and just the waves in my head are just kind of moving, and the information is traversing my brain. It's just, I felt like that's where I was meant to be. That was one of the only things that could keep up with how fast my mind thinks and processes. It's also why I love heavy metal. I mean, I love heavy metal just because I love music. I play guitar. Wouldn't mind getting into drums someday because that's one of the other things too. And another ADHD moment right now. Oh look, squirrel. But I'm always sitting there and I'm always kind of moving my leg. A part of me 24/7 is always moving, even in my sleep. My leg is kind of twitching, moving a little bit. Even as I'm sitting here recording this video, I'm looking down like, oh yeah, there goes the old leg, up, down, you know, and kind of like a jackhammer, so to speak. You know, and I think that's the ADHD. I'm just, you know, constantly just, and I'm trying to slow things down, you know, slow down my output, but everything in my brain, it's like a conveyor belt in a factory. You know, if you don't get that product or that those bottles or whatever product you're working with, you know, off that conveyor belt and onto a pallet or a tray fast enough, it's all just going to start bunching up. You know, it's going to you know, get clogged up, and things are going to start falling onto the floor. And that's kind of what I deal with, you know, mentally. If I can't get it out fast enough, everything just kind of piles up inside my head, and then everything starts getting jumbled and garbled and lost in translation. And oh man, it sucks. It's like most of the time I know what I want to say, but it's getting it out in a you know, understandable, I guess, format is kind of the challenge. So, but I'm trying not to let things get too congested inside my head, and that's difficult. But so back to the back to the work side of things, the technology side of things. I was playing it safe. You know, I thought that that's where I was supposed to be. Um, and I just felt like I was just rotting away, just in real time. The 24/7 always on culture was just killing me. It was just eroding my brain. I thought, hey, you know, I'm intelligent. I know what I'm doing here. I can answer those calls at 2, 3 in the morning, midnight, work all day, and then still be on call. You know, 24/7, like I was with my most recent position that I left. Um, and no problem. You know, I have the ability to, you know, with the ADHD, and I have a touch of OCD as well. So everything has to be perfect, but only some of the time. um, so, you know, I had no problem at the time, you know, or in the beginning, I guess, doing that, responding to those calls. You know, oh, our network is down. Oh, you know, we got ransomware. You know, we need all hands on deck. You know, you got to call all the other engineers and get the team assembled, because you know it's all hands on deck. And for a while, I actually enjoyed that. You know, I enjoyed the chaos, being able to switch gears and multitask just so quickly. I thought, hey, you know, this is great. You know, I can do this, no problem. But the last several years, I realized that, you know, maybe at this point I am just chasing the money, because I was so burned out, and I saw, you know, others living their dreams and making their dreams come true. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, you know, just a little bit longer, you know, next year, or, you know, Monday or this month or that week, I will do what I felt I was meant to do. But even though I wasn't exactly sure what I was meant to do, you know, I've gone through life so many years always feeling like I never really had a purpose, or maybe I did, and I just didn't know what the fuck that purpose was. You know, I struggled so much and so hard, and I just played it safe and just thought, okay, you know, things are crazy. You know, I got a job, I got benefits. I'm just going to stick right here and make that money, even though I'm not happy with it. You know, it just goes to show it doesn't matter, you know, at least for me personally, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Money doesn't equal happiness. It absolutely doesn't. And I was making good money and I had good benefits, but I was not happy. You know, I've felt like for so many years, like I've just kind of lived in my own prison, you know, my own kind of mental prison. And I just wanted out. I just wanted to be released from that prison. I just wanted to get out as quickly as possible, because, you know, and that's kind of another thing too. You know, there are several times when I did attempt to free myself from what I would consider a life sentence in prison. You know, but and some other things just kind of going through. But you know, something always pulled me back. Something always, you know, just slapped me in the face and say, you know, what the hell are you doing, dude? You know, you're just being stupid. You're an idiot for even thinking like that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, tell me why. Tell me what else I'm supposed to do, because, you know, I feel like I'm just kind of floating along here, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to be. I know I have a lot of interests, and like Nigel mentioned, um, start many projects, complete none. Oh, brother, I'm the epiphany of start many projects, complete none. I could count, yeah, I probably couldn't count all the projects that I've started over the years, and um, but I could probably count on one hand out of all those projects that I've started that I've actually completed or neared completion. Um, I have so many interests and just so many things, and growing up, being adopted and growing up in a family where not only was I the tallest person in my family, which is kind of funny, um, 6'10", 6'11", right around there. I always knew that I was different than everyone else. I just feel like I just didn't fit in. And, for a while there when I was younger, yeah, I struggled to kind of fit in. But then I got to a point, I'm like, you know what? Why am I trying so hard to fit in? Yes, I'm different. And I pride myself in being different. I'm proud of being different. Um, I'm not, I've never been considered, I've never considered myself to be normal. And I think a lot of people around me have never considered me normal either. And you know what? That's fine because as far as I'm concerned, normalcy sucks. I don't even know if I know what normal is. But, I guess what I could consider normal from others that I've hung around with and been around, I guess, I could consider them, more neurotypical, whereas I would consider myself more neurodivergent. I mean, the ADHD and OCD and depression and whatnot. But so just trying to figure out, what the hell am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? I just feel like I'm in this mental prison that I just can't escape from or get out of. And the last couple years, especially, I've been doing just a lot of, I guess, soul searching. I had some incidents that kind of, I went to a very deep, dark place, and I got pulled out of that. And I've been kind of doing a lot of thinking ever since. Kind of, take a step back and reevaluating where I'm at, where do I want to be, and what are the steps I need to take to get there? Because I felt like I was meant for something so much more, not to sit behind a goddamn desk for the rest of my life, punching keys, staring at a screen, having ocular migraines from staring at multiple screens, and then you have the fluorescent lighting overhead beaming down on you. I call that, working in an office, I call that hell with fluorescent lighting. That's what I refer to that as. And yeah, I had an office, but I didn't have a window. I couldn't, look outside. The only window I had was looking out in front of me where I could see, all the other cubicles. I'm thinking, what the hell is this? It's just a maze and a conglomeration of cubicles, and the hearing of the keys, the sound of the keys tapping all day, the the chatter in the coffee room or the break room talk, or the water cooler talk, as I guess they refer to it as, and corporate culture. Um, and just sitting there like, this just is not for me. This is not for me. Why am I doing this? Why am I still doing this? Aside from just chasing the money, and because I enjoyed working with technology, but do I really enjoy it that much to keep watching my life pass me by? Because that's exactly what it was. You know, it reminded me of being a kid and sitting in the, where were we at? About 30 minutes almost. It reminded me of being a kid sitting in in-house detention and just sitting there just staring at the clock, just tick, 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 just waiting for it to be 3 o'clock for the bell to ring so I can get the hell out of there. Um, that's kind of what that was like, sitting there staring at screens all day and not having the best eyesight. Well, more so now from, a career of staring at freaking screens all day. One of the things I would do, because I'd be sedentary most of the day. I mean, I did go out in the field quite a bit, but then when I switched to more of a remote setting, I was a lot more sedentary. So, when you sit 8, 10, 12 hours a day, I was still going to the gym. My gym time was 3 a.m., which I still thoroughly enjoy. I'm getting back into that. Lately, I've been working out with the equipment that I have in my basement, which gets the job done, but not quite, well, nowhere near to the extent or capability that I have. So I need to get back to the gym. And uh, a buddy of mine that I know pretty well, he owns a 24/7 access gym. He's got 3 locations around the area where I live. So there's really no excuses, I need to get back into that. But my most recent job that I ended up quitting in 2024, I was on call 24/7. I was working for a global company out of Australia. And those guys I worked with in Australia, freaking phenomenal. Just, a great team. We also had locations in the UK and New Zealand as well. The US side of things, um, before I say, before I say what I want to say, I do want to preface this with the team that I was on, the individuals I worked with, the few people that I worked with on my team, great people, amazing people, and they actually left as well. But great people. It was a pleasure working with them. Now the leadership side of things, or lack thereof, complete and utter joke. The one guy that referred to himself as the CEO. Now, he wasn't the CEO over the company as a whole. He was just the CEO for the U.S. Region, which complete and utter joke. You know, I do know a bit about business, and I'm hopefully, if it doesn't get too long here, I'll get into that as well as to what I'm doing now and kind of my future. Um, you know, he was a complete joke. He was just kind of a power tripping fool. He was a show off, acted like he knew everything, and you know, when I come into a company, I'm the silent one. I always kind of look for the loudest person in the room because the loudest person in the room isn't usually the smartest or the most knowledgeable, and he certainly thought he was. Um, he was very rude and condescending, and I'm thinking it's probably a good thing we don't work in the same office because yeah, a few times I'm thinking, yeah, I would lose my job that day because there'd be a face-to-face confrontation. But and then my boss, who was the VP, which he was the VP of delivery, and he would always say, if there's anything you need, anything whatsoever, please reach out. And anytime I would reach out, if there's something I would need, oh, I'm not really sure. You might have to ask your Australian friends and see if they can help you. Like, okay, I see where this is going. I'm thinking, so you're the VP of delivery. Like, brother, you couldn't deliver yourself out of a pizza box. I don't know how you're the VP of delivery or the VP of anything for that matter. So maybe the VP of jack shit. I don't know, but and I'm just thinking, that this is really what I want to trade my time for the rest of my life or as a career, and that was just kind of my breaking point, and I gave my buddies in Australia and in the UK a heads up, like, hey, this is what my plan is. Um, I'm going to put in my 2 weeks notice, effective, the next day, and that's it. I'm done. And I had a good conversation with them. They were very supportive, and I just felt that it was something I needed to do. And it wasn't just because the U.S. side of things lacked all leadership. There was no leadership there. There were just people in leadership roles that weren't leaders. Make it make sense. Um, they couldn't lead anybody. They certainly couldn't lead a company. Um, but it was just further reinforcement that I need to be doing something different, and that's where I thought this is something I need to do for myself. I need to do my own thing. And going back again, as a little kid, I used to sit and write, like, not full on business plans, but I used to write down like kind of dreams and aspirations, but not just someday I want to do this, like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a firefighter. I mean, I didn't want to be either one of those things, but I'm just giving those as examples. use, like a thought process of a young mind. Probably some of the things that I thought even as a kid, or the thoughts that traversed my mind as a kid, you probably don't even want to know. But I was, like I said, I was a demon child. But it is what it is. Like, oh, I want to break this, or I want to destroy that, or whatever. But um, I always thought, I would write things down literally step by step. And as a kid, I seemed to, kind of had things somewhat figured out. Normally, as a kid and then into adulthood, you progress. You make progress. But I feel like I kind of regressed. I made steps of progress. I would start things, and I would get excited, like, okay, I'm going to start a business. As a kid, I would write things down, step by step. This is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I'm going to measure my success, and I'm going to reach these goals. I wrote stuff down all the time. I would always talk about how I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It never came to fruition because I just never really I had drive, but I didn't execute, and speed and execution are two things that you got to have, especially if you want to complete a project, if you want to, be successful. I'm not saying those are the only, parameters or variables that you need to be successful or measure such, but I'm saying that, I've learned along the way in life in my 45 years that I've met a lot of stupid people. I'm just going to come out and say it. A lot of stupid people that I otherwise would have thought that were very successful. And on the outside, I thought they were. They're building these huge companies. They're making it happen. They're making money. They're successful. And then you get to talking to them, and you ask them even the most basic questions, whether it has something, to do or in relation to their business, if it's something technical, if it's organizational, if it's operational, and they can't even answer those basic questions. They're just like a deer in the headlights. And I'm thinking, what the fuck am I missing here? I feel like, this guy's built this empire. He should be able to tell me step by step what he did. Maybe he doesn't want to give that information away. Maybe it's proprietary information. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's got an NDA or something that he can't, communicate that information to me, which is totally understandable. But they can't even give me a basic foundation or a basic framework to build from. So how the hell did they build this freaking empire? They're making all this money. Do they have other people doing the work for them? Are they the head honcho? They just had the idea, and then they have others that build it or execute for them. And it just, kind of a light bulb just went off. I'm like, I've always considered myself the idea guy. I have ideas left and right multiple times a day. I pick up on things. I hear things, and I think, that's a business idea. Holy crap, I'm going to start a business out of that. So I get home, I pull up a registrar like GoDaddy or Namecheap, and, I type in yada, yada, yada.com. I'm going to, there we go. I have this idea. Here's the name for it. I'm going to buy the domain name for it. I'm going to register this as an LLC, and I'm going to start a business out of it. And then I get about halfway through that and just poof. And then I'm already on to something else. And I'm on to something else. I start things, but I don't finish them. I start multiple things and don't finish them. And I look back, being 45 years old now, and I look back and realize all the things that I've started and where I could have been now, and I just didn't execute, I don't want to blame everything on ADHD. I don't want to use that as a crutch. I understand that, like I have a problem, and I need to fix that problem. It's like, okay, I know I have a problem. I know the steps I need to take to fix that problem, but why can't I take those steps, or why aren't I taking those steps? But, fast forward to now, and I'm branching off. I left tech. You can take the man out of tech, but you can't take the tech out of the man. I still try to keep up to date with some of that stuff, but it just doesn't interest me as much anymore. Like I just, I get alerts and things like that in my email. Oh, this company was breached, or, there's a new vulnerability out there that's been exploited, and, this company's been hacked. This company got ransomware, and I just kind of chuckle. Not that I think it's funny or that I'm happy that they did. Well, in some cases I am, because, yeah. But, when you see security in tech, your tech department as a commodity, well, as far as I'm concerned, you deserve to get compromised, but that's another thing. But I just look at those things and I can't help but kind of chuckle and just think to myself, yeah, I genuinely feel bad for their tech team, because they're going to be working around the clock 24/7. They're not going to be getting much sleep. I was there. I was that guy, and oh man, that it was tough. But I guess one word that I could say is I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and now, as of a few years ago, I kind of want to be more a solopreneur. But what I was as a kid is I was a want-trepreneur. I was a wantrepreneur, meaning I want it. I talk about it. I spend, days, hours just talking about, what I want to do, what I'm going to do, but I just never do it. So that's a wantrepreneur. Solopreneur, entrepreneur, well, they execute. They make it happen. They have the plan and they execute the plan. They take the steps to make it work, like Black Scorpion Fitness. I wanted to start my own gym. Where does the scorpion come from? I'm a Scorpio. I'm a diehard Scorpio, true to my sign. Anybody that knows me, very well, will tell you. And that's just kind of something I thought one day. I'm like, yeah, Black Scorpion Fitness. It just, I don't know, it just kind of came up with it, And then the Scorpio lifestyle, that was going to be something, it was going to be like, living the lifestyle based on, the traits of a Scorpio. But then I'm thinking, that's kind of weird, because, what if somebody asked me, well, do you have a Capricorn lifestyle? Do you have a Virgo lifestyle? And I started thinking, I don't think that's going to work. Even with the purposeful misspelling, the K instead of the C. Like that's not going to work, because it's narrowing my market, so to speak. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Scorpios out there, but what about the rest of the horoscopes? So that just didn't make sense. So I'm converting this into something entirely different, and I'm going to be renaming Scorpio Lifestyle to Scorpion, but I'm going to keep the K instead of the C. I'm going to rename Scorpio Lifestyle into Scorpion Strength. And here's the idea I have, and I'm going to execute on this. I've got a business plan, made out, because, I have a lot to say. I have a lot more to say. I could probably do this for forever, but that would be ridiculous. But the idea behind Scorpion Strength is going to be, strength isn't just physical, it's mental as well. The body will not go where the mind doesn't push it. And you have to, just kind of envision things, envision what you want to do, where you want to be, what are the steps going to be that you need to take to get there, to get that physique, to get that, that's, into the physical state that you want to be. Now, I'm not saying, I'm launching like a bodybuilding channel or something like that. I'm not doing that. This is going to be much, much different. And I'll save that for another video, but I do have a couple of other, or another LLC that I've started too, where, and this is something, a calling, a passion, where I feel like I need to be, because I have a friend who he deals with schizophrenia and ADHD, and we've been friends for probably almost 30 years now, and helped him quite a bit, happily, and I see the things that he goes through, and so I decided several months ago, I decided to start an LLC, and I'm actually working with the state and where I live now, and as of right now, I'm an independent provider. That's my primary source of income. And I'm kind of transitioning into my own business, starting my own agency, where I'm basically providing services to kids and young adults who are developmentally disabled. Things like autism and schizophrenia and things like that. I'll probably save that for another video, but that's definitely something I'm very passionate about, and I'm actually doing it. I'm actually moving forward with it. I'm executing on it, but I need to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and not become stale, stuck, and stagnant like I did working in tech, and ending up, more depressed and dry eyes and, busted up back, which, I'm working on all of that. But tech started out great, but it ended up bad, both for my health, both mentally and physically. And I just decided, that's just not something I want to do anymore. And I'm glad that I stepped away from it because I feel like a whole new person. I feel like a brand new person. I feel like the possibilities are endless and unlimited. I have so many more ideas I can think. I don't have to think about, constantly, okay, what's going to happen if I lay down and want to get 5 minutes of shut eye? Is my phone going to ring? That constant wondering and worrying if, my phone's going to ring or when it's going to ring. Like, okay, it's a quiet day, it's the weekend. I'm going to leave the house and drive, a few miles to get some groceries. As soon as you leave the house, boom, the phone rings. Oh, there goes that. There goes the rest of my day. So, I don't have to worry about that anymore. And I just feel like a completely new person. And still have a lot that I'm dealing with and going through. But, I feel like I'm making progress. I feel like I'm executing. I know I kind of went off on a tangent and went off on several different things. Um, you know, I'm open to kind of a Q&A session even, what part of everything I talked about, that, suggestions, what would you like to hear more about? Because, I have a lot of things that I still need to and want to say and get out. And uh, so and one of the things I'm going to save this for another video is the adoption aspect. That has, I feel like, I don't want to say has changed me, but it's definitely kind of shaped me as a man, especially more so over the last couple of years. So that's definitely something that I want to talk about in my next video because I'll leave you with a little bit of suspense. I did finally meet my birth or biological father, which is very interesting. And let's just say a lot of questions were answered, like literally right out of the gate. So I'll save that for another video. I'll kind of leave it there. But yeah, still kicking, still breathing, still moving, and still going. And I'm going to keep going. And I'm happy to say that because I was getting to a point again, and probably more so than ever, where I felt like I was just I was running on fumes. I ran out of gas. I was running on fumes, and I was just done. I was just tired of it. But I'll make another video, and I want this to be the start of something new. I want to actually do something. I want to give back. I want to be productive. I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact in a profound and positive manner. So yeah, onward and forward from here, and we'll see what happens. So until next time, I will talk to you soon.